If I told you we're staking the fate of our company on the big idea that we cover in this episode being on target, what would you say? Pack it in or get ready for the ride on the rocket ship? That's how existential we're getting on this episode. And did you hear the one about the driverless car traffic jam? You'll want to stick around for that. Hi, I'm Courtney Baker, and this is the AI Know-How podcast from Knownwell, helping you reimagine your business in the AI era. As always, I'm joined by Knownwell CEO David DeWolf, Chief Strategy Officer Pete Buer, and Chief Product Officer Mohan Rao. We'll also be talking with Brian McCarthy, Chief Revenue Officer at Rubrik. We'll chat with Brian about how they're bringing cybersecurity to the mainstream and the role AI is playing. But first, the news.
I'm Mohan Rao, handling the news segment this week while Courtney is on a well-deserved vacation. As always, we are joined by Knownwell's Chief Strategy Officer, Pete Buer, to break down some of the most pertinent AI news from last week. Hey, Pete.
Hey, Mohan, how are you?
Let's start with this. AI is called in for a landmark study of critically endangered species on Outback Station. The article says, in a wildlife conservation first, AI technology and 24-hour surveillance will be used to monitor the plains wanderer, a critically endangered bird. Pete, what, if anything, can business leaders take from this?
I think the lesson here is that this is a great application of technology and at the end of the day, AI for tasks that either would be too much energy or maybe not as well served by humans doing the same work. So if you run out the operational requirements behind this surveillance exercise, it's 1.5 million acres, 60 monitoring stands capturing video and audio 24 hours a day, all year long. You can, the goal, of course, is the bird in this stretch of land? If so, is it thriving? And if so, what could we replicate? How can we create these circumstances elsewhere? You can feel how this would translate well to business setting, right? Looking for signal in your information flows. When I think about the efficiencies, like imagine the manual work to do all of what we just described, but then on top of that, the analytics on the back end. I think I measured 525,000 hours of recording that have to be crawled through to find out whether the plains wanderer is in the outback in this stretch of land. So pretty great, and I think the applications are straightforward. You've got chatbot data 24/7 around your products and services. Is there an AI application, to help you figure out if there's signal that you're missing that would improve product, improve service, surface sales opportunities? So for anyone listening, I would play with those ideas and see where the application is in your own business.
Next up, let's shift to California. In Fairfield, residents can now meet Archie, the City of Fairfield's artificial intelligence aide. They've created an AI chatbot that allows citizens to report issues like potholes, water leaks, and graffiti. Archie can respond in real time in more than 70 languages and provides links and related information. Pete, what's the big takeaway here for business leaders?
I love the problem that this solves. It's the do I even bother problem for customers. I see a big pothole out on the street in town, and I'm thinking, who do I even call? Are they going to answer the phone? If they answer the phone, is anything going to happen? And like a lot of the pictures I've seen shared around, I'm probably going to get a faster result if I plant a tree in the pothole than if I try to go through that process. So here we've got a button on a website that gets you connected to a chatbot, talks in 70 different languages, parses your observation request problem that you've identified in the city, and routes it to the appropriate department to take care of it. Pretty great. I think it lowers the barrier of entry or the barrier of engagement to a customer trying to make a connection to a business in order to have a problem solved. And we all have versions of that in our own businesses. At the end of the day, you still have to have the operations to back up the routing. And so, will the pothole ultimately get filled is a question, I guess, that we'll be watching in Fairfield, California.
What does it mean that we're moving from a growth economy to a performance economy? And more importantly, what are the implications of this shift to your business strategy? Knownwell CEO David DeWolf joins us today to talk about the idea that, not to put it too bluntly here, is the entire reason our company exists. David, welcome back to the show. And with that intro, no pressure to deliver here.
Thanks a lot, Courtney. I really appreciate it. I have to think deeply about that one, but it's great to be here. I had so much fun in the previous episodes, and can't wait to talk about this because I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah, you know what I love about that statement is I didn't really warn you about it. I'm just dropping that here. And we could debate if it's true or not. But let's jump in for people that maybe haven't seen any of your writing on this subject. Can you break it down, this shift and what we're talking about when we say moving from a growth to a performance economy?
Yeah, sure. I think if we look back on the past decade plus, we have been in a growth economy, which I would define by growth at all costs. And the reason for that is the advent of the digital economy has brought about our ability to reach a literally immeasurable, unlimited, infinite number of consumers, right? In addition to that, the interesting thing about digital products is that they infinitely scale as well. So you build it once and you can sell it an unlimited number of times. And there are also network effects where the more individuals using a product, the more valuable it gets. And so this leads to this ability to realize massive growth in a way that in the history of the world, we've just never been able to realize before. We went from selling pencils where I had a single one and I could go count the number of people that I can meet with to sell that pencil, and I had to manufacture one pencil at a time to give it to them, to a world where that just wasn't true anymore. And this explosion of growth came, right? So we are in that era right now. And I'm not saying that that's going to go away. That is a reality that's here to stay, but we have been going through the transformation of realizing the value of that digital technology that allows us to build these digital products. We are now entering a period of time with the advent of AI, the same type of massive shift is going to happen within our organizations, because now we have this intelligence that is able to create efficiencies and productivity like we have never seen before, not only in the physical world, but in this virtual world, right? And so knowledge work is being automated at unprecedented levels. And everybody's thinking about, the robotics doing the blue collar work, even the generative AI that has really hit us recently doing the knowledge work. But those are individual productivity gains. Massive gains are going to come through how all of these piece parts within a business come together. Research shows that 85% of the work that we do on a day in, day out basis is actually collaborative in nature, cross-functional in nature. And so we are able to now automate and have insights and understand the world of work and our productivity and efficiency in ways that is going to blow our mind. And so what you're about to see is the same way we had a massive growth imperative, we're now going to have a performance imperative like never before. Here's the fun part. It's happening at exactly the point in time where our economy needs it, right? Look at the economic data. What is happening? Growth at all costs has caught up to us. There are different shifts, all sorts of reasons, inflation rates, all of these types of things. And the technology is coming on the scene to shift us when we need it to be able to produce more profits, do more productively in order to get to the next level. And so I think it's a reality that's on us right now, and that's the shift we're going through.
That's incredibly helpful. And I'm just thinking for everybody listening, if there's one thing that you take away from this discussion, even just the awareness of that shift and what we mean by that shift is really impactful. So next step here, being aware of that is one thing, but as a CEO, what do I do with that? What are your recommendations for evaluating our digital strategies as we move into this performance economy?
So I think first and foremost, you see it just naturally happening because of where the economy is. Organizations are pulling back, right? They're being smarter about their spend. Now, here's the problem. We're going to actually have to invest in increasing the productivity because we want the output to go up while the input is going down. And so we're pulling back on the input. Every single time we have a recession, a slowdown in the economy, the winners are the ones that know how to tap their brakes into the curve and accelerate out of it, to use a racing term. Okay. Now, that's what we want to be thinking about. And the question is, tap my brakes. That's what's happening right now. How do I accelerate? Where do I invest? I think the explosive growth is going to come from the adoption of AI. We see it already, right? The leading infrastructure companies that are investing in this technology are the ones that are thriving in this economy right now. It's where the gains in the stock market have come from. And so we're going to see that trickle through from the infrastructure to the platforms to the applications. And so where are you in your AI adoption? Are you becoming grounded in this technology, understanding what it truly can do for your business, beginning to identify opportunities and to actually execute on experiments? And I think the key there from a productivity perspective is not doing it for technology's sake, right? There's a lot of work on getting data ready, technology ready. That's great, but we have to understand the use cases. Where can we use AI to actually drive performance excellence? Where can we use it to increase productivity? Where can we use it to drive efficiency? And if you really learn the technology, understand what it's capable of, you're going to be able to come up with those use cases more effectively. And then how do you identify those short-term ones where you can do quick, rapid experimentation and learn, and start to take advantage of it?
I love that. And I, in my head, keep going back to the first episode in case you're listening and missed it. That's a great one that kind of frames up a little more around some, if you're totally new and feeling a little intimidated by this whole thing, some really easy first steps to get you onboarded into this discussion.
And Courtney, I would say, just to put a finer point on that and what we talked about in that episode, here's the thing. Every time technology advances, business leaders tend to be scared, fearful, paralyzed because they think it's a technology problem. It's actually not. The biggest bottleneck we see for adoption of AI is not the data and the technology. It is actually the functional business leaders' understanding of it and ability to drive the change. And so if you can just educate yourself, start listening and paying attention, you will begin to figure out those strategies, not for their own sake, but for the sake of the business.
So David, just to hit on this again, you reference kind of the growth at all cost mindset that ruled the growth economy where we are right now. What mindset do you think is going to rule the performance economy as we move into it?
The word that keeps coming to my mind is performance excellence. I think it's about excellence, right? It is not just efficiency, which is doing more with less and making the best use out of resources. It's actually the upside of that too. It will even drive growth, right? Productivity is about the output that comes from the inputs. And so it's about reorganizing the business in order to produce more with less. Both the numerator and the denominator have to change. One's going up, the other one's going down. And we've got to be thinking about that from an excellence perspective. How do you as a leader remove friction? How do you leverage this technology in order to multiply your resources and make sure that 1 + 1 = 7? That's the mindset of excellence.
Oh, that's so good. I thought you were going to say 3, but 7 is actually probably so better for this type of technology. It's not even 1 + 1 = 3. It's really
it might
7.
be 13. Yeah,
it might
absolutely.
be 13. Well, ultimately, I think the key point that we're making today is there's this shift happening. And if you're a CEO, an executive, being aware of that shift and really getting ahead of it, early on is so important when you look at your competition. You don't want to be on the back end of this. Any other thoughts on that, David, before we sign off here?
Yep. I think you hit the nail on the head. Starts with education. It continues with experimentation, right? Be a leader, drive the change, and really remember to lead with the business outcome.
Thanks, David. This was so helpful.
Oh, a lot of fun. Thanks for having me again.
You're an executive in the pursuit of excellence, and leveraging AI is pivotal in your company's future. We've created an exclusive AI readiness assessment that's available right now at knownwell.com. Now, you may be asking yourself, why take this assessment? 2 reasons. The first is strategic insight. You're going to be able to discover the pivotal steps to catapult AI-driven growth in your business. The second is some customized analysis to help you uncover specific areas that need enhancement for optimal AI implementation. The assessment is quick and insightful. In just 10 minutes, you're going to be able to redefine your business trajectory when it comes to AI. You can access it now at knownwell.com. To help us gain more insight into this topic, our very own Pete Buer spoke with Rubrik Chief Revenue Officer Brian McCarthy. They chatted about how Rubrik is helping companies like Home Depot shore up their approach to cybersecurity and data protection, and the role AI is playing in the process.
Brian, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Pete, thanks for having me. Great to be on.
This particular episode is about AI enabling, powering the business for efficiency, profitability, productivity. I know some of the work that you're doing earns these kinds of returns in businesses as well.
Sure.
So could you talk a little bit about the type of work that you're doing to AI power companies?
Where I see in technology in general, in sales, where AI can play a huge role is in that freemium model and that first touch point, the ability to communicate and with a prospect, getting them to talk about what they're trying to solve for, what their experience is within the product. As I take a step outside of function and I think about where AI plays a role in driving productivity gains specific to our customers and what we're selling to. The same technology that bad actors and hackers are trying to use to break into companies and hack into credentials, we're using and want to use to protect companies. To get smarter around large language models and data, to be able to be proactive in executing safeguards, to safeguard the data, to automate signaling around, hey, there's some odd things that are happening with unique logins that coming from weird places. This could be a potential threat. Like, we're getting smarter at notifying and alerting on those elements. And I think that's going to be an area of continual innovation where the false alerts are too much for a person to respond to, and an AI machinery gets smarter as it goes. And then I would say the third bucket where AI has a big role to play is data trust. And when you think about AI in particular, and you think about the power of large language models and what can be done with it, you're often met with also the skepticism of it, right? Like, what if those things fall into the wrong hands, right? What if certain data finds its way into one of these AI algorithms or machines or large language models, and the wrong data is used, and it's unethical or it's used for the wrong purposes? And where we see Rubrik has a huge role to play. Because we at Rubrik collect all the data, so as part of securing the data, we take the data from all of the systems offline, everything from AD, user information of data, to the raw data from all the source systems. And because we have the ability to scan through all the data and have insight about that data, who the user is, what they're using, what they have access to, et cetera, the sensitivity of that data, the content of that data. We think there's a huge opportunity for us to be a prep area for the AI machine to ensure, almost like a check mark, like this data is usable. Yes, you can load this data in. This data is available for large language model. You can use this. Nope, this data is sensitive. It's for X eyes only. Anybody with this credential can see this. And so we see that as becoming a huge area of opportunity in the fight, by the way, for data security, but also in the fight for, I would say, we'll call it like AI data trust, to ensure that the data that's going in has been vetted, is clean, and is ready for whoever's eyes or the usability of whatever that LLM is going to use that data for.
I'm going to go back and probe on the second of the three use cases. When you talk about the work that you're doing for customers, both to make security better, but also to drive efficiency, productivity gains, have you gotten to a place where you've quantified that yet? Like, do you know how many hours you're saving, set aside the threats you're warding off?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We haven't quantified the AI component of it. So we haven't necessarily, we used and have used machine learning and AI for a number of years, actually, around getting smarter around the alerting area of the business, the observability. And one of the problems for the CISO specifically in the observability layer is you get too many false alerts, right? Like it's too noisy. Everything is constantly blowing up a dashboard, it's turning red. And so if everything is noisy, nothing is inspected. That's the reality, right? It's just too much input. And so where we've got the most leverage from the AI machine learning is getting much more tuned and precise to making those alerts useful so that we can actually call out, no, this is something you need to pay attention to, which makes it much more action oriented, enables the security and InfoSec teams to take action versus wait until it's too late because they didn't want to be proactive to the alert because it was too noisy.
Given everything we've talked about in terms of AI powering the business, AI related threats to the business, AI protection of the business, if you could give execs listening on the call one piece of advice about how to make sure that the organization is ready today, what would it be?
What I would say is two things. One, you got to lean into AI. It's not going away. It's not something that should be scary. You get the debate of like, hey, are we going to become dehumanized? Humans are needed to learn how to leverage the power and capability of AI. So regardless of function, whatever executive you're in, if you're a CFO or a COO or a CIO, regardless of what your role and function are, you need to be thinking, how do I utilize this technology in my function? So whatever the function is, how do we take advantage of the value of AI to improve productivity and performance and up-level the human skills to be able to utilize the output to drive change? That's one. And then two, in particular, from a cyber perspective, cyber criminals are some of the most heavily funded startup companies in the world. People often don't realize this. They have call centers. They're like sophisticated technology companies. They have customer success teams. I don't know if people realize this, but like you can call a hotline after you've been a ransomware and they treat you like a customer. They're very polite. Like, hey, we were in your system for 30 days. You didn't even know you had this 0-day vulnerability in your technology. They tell you everything. They're highly funded, sometimes state-sponsored cyber criminals, and in some ways creating cyber war, very intentional when it's state-sponsored. It's not going away. And the only way to combat this is to bring even better technology to play to combat them. These people are playing with big budgets, big dollars, and the game is big. You can't go try to defend yourself on the cheap arsenal. If cyber criminals are using it to get access to your environment, to do damage, you need to be using it to protect yourself.
Awesome. Brian, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We're honored to have you on the program.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much.
Before we go, I wanted to share with you a story that made the rounds in the Knownwell offices. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. We'll have a link in the episode description.
Spotted in West Campus early Sunday morning, one driverless car, then another, then another.
It was just insane. Like, they need to get better at seeing where each other are positionally and lining up. I mean, all of them were like facing sideways in the street, trying to navigate around each other, even though they're all part of the same network.
While the future of self-driving cars looks bright, this is a good reminder that we've still got a ways to go. That's it for today's episode of AI Know-How, brought to you by the team at Knownwell. If you're looking to reimagine your organization for the AI era and get ahead of this transformation that is coming, then make sure to visit knownwell.com and take our free AI readiness assessment. You can also sign up for our weekly newsletter there as well. Of course, we would love for you to do all the things you do with podcast. Share it, rate it, subscribe to it. It really helps us grow this show. Also, there's some really cool new features on Spotify podcast. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're listening from Spotify, you can drop in questions directly to us there. But before we go, we always like to see what ChatGPT has to say about this topic. ChatGPT, what do you think?
AI facilitates a smoother transition from growth to performance economies by enhancing data-driven decision-making and process optimization. As businesses prioritize performance, AI tools become crucial in ensuring efficiency, innovation, and customer-centric strategies.
And now you're in the know. We'll see you next week with more AI news, roundtable discussions, and interviews.